Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pixel Classroom podcast. I am, of course, your host, Ryan Reed here, and you can, of course, listen to us to your own system and everything else on your favorite service. We are live streaming, of course, right here. I wish I could say it's every Friday or Saturday, but we don't work that way. I'm sorry, I'm not that good at that producer in here, too. And, of course, my guest today is laughing at me if you haven't seen it yet, but you will hear her in a little bit here, too. So I'd like to everybody welcome the a wonderful educator, the author of Phenomenal, Teacher Pursuing Your Dreams. She's a passionate grade 1 French immersion teacher who began her teaching career in 2009. She has chosen inaugurated educator for the Lakeland Sage Creek School, where she continues to teach today, which, you know, I'm kind of jealous because I don't know what that is, but it sounds really amazing. So I think we'll go in here. But I'd like to welcome author, fellow educator, and a boy mom herself, Annick Rauch. Right? Welcome to the Pixel Classroom podcast there, Annick.
Thanks so much for having me on, Ryan. I'm super excited to chat today.
Well, thank you for being us here on this lovely afternoon as we're doing, because she's in Canada and I'm here in the Midwest. We're all having a little fun on our little dimes here too. But and I just came to give you a little bit of a slide introduction. Why don't you tell the listening and viewing audience exactly who you are and what brings you here today?
You bet. So like you said, I'm the author of Phenomenal Teacher. I've also been a grade 1 teacher for more years than I would like to admit. And I got, like you mentioned in the intro, I got the incredible honor of opening up a brand new school 7 years ago. This year is the 8th year that we're open. So it's kind of been a fun journey to see the beginning of a school year or a school building develop into what it is today, and just getting to learn the ins and outs of starting a new school, which was very overwhelming. I learned a lot through it, and I'm also a mom of 4. I'm very busy with my 4 boys who are in hockey, doing all of the things. But despite working full time and having my hands full with my kids, I still find the time to do things that fill me up, like running or going to CrossFit and pursuing my own hopes and dreams. So that's me in a nutshell.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. I mean, you've got quite the interesting career. And you, like I said, the education and the fact that you got to open a new school. I've been at least president of schools that were new that opened after I got there and everything else. But that's quite a thing. What is it like to actually come in when you open a school? Not very many teachers actually get to say, hey, I was right there when the school opened and whole thing. And this is what the plan was. I mean, I have a couple former coworkers who have been able to have that joy on that thing. But what was that like for you coming into that? And now, you know, the fact you say it's 8 years later now, it's hard to believe, you know, you're almost into this school being open. When some people are like, oh, I remember when that school opened. It's like, it's been almost 10 years. Wait, what?
Yeah. You know what? It was an incredible journey, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it was a lot of work. Like, I remember the last year that I worked at my previous school, we were setting things up for the new school. So as I was working my full-time job as a classroom teacher in my old school, I was already going on a school retreat for 2 days with my new staff. I was already ordering all of the new things that I needed for my classroom, meeting my new team members. And then there was a lot of little things that you don't expect that would add up that were really overwhelming. Like, you don't have any routines or systems in place. You don't have a school mascot or school colors, or you don't even know what doors you're coming in and out of for recess. These are all things that we take for granted, routines that have been established in schools that are already existing. Whereas when you're starting one from scratch, you need to literally figure out all of those tiny details. And what's interesting is that currently I am in a dual track school, which means we have the French immersion program and the English program. And when this school opened in this new development, the only reason that we opened a dual track school is because 50% of our population wanted an English program and 50% wanted the French immersion program. So they put us both in one building, in fully knowing that they would need to open a second school sooner rather than later. And so this finally is happening. So although this is my 8th year teaching in this building, next year I will be moving to another brand new school, and they are going to be separating the French immersion and the English program. So I will get to do all of this all over again next year.
Did they give you like a freaking like punch card there? Like, you've opened this many new schools.
I know.
Like, we're right now. Maybe we'll give her our book deal. Wow. I mean, that's very amazing that actually, like you said, with the immersion, especially being in Canada and everything, but it is the fact that you're actually going to be going to another new building here. I mean, my current district, they are currently finishing a side, which is a well-needed expansion on the elementary school, but they've already say that's for space and everything else, but they're already working on a new building, which is for CTE. So that's going to be really different different for the high school in my current district at CUSD 50 in Harvard. So a lot of us are a lot of the older teachers are very excited to actually get their space expanded and everything else. And they're going to be moving to a new space, yet they've been still part of this school. So yeah, I think they kind of share in that similar excitement as well.
For sure. Yeah.
So, I got that popped up right now. So Phenomenal, which first of all, it's hard to believe it was out a year ago. And I actually feel bad. It took me so long to buy it. I was going to get it. And then there was just so much going on at the time the book came out. And then I said, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. And then I didn't get it. And then finally I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy this book because everybody tells me to buy, Phenomenal. And
listen, now we just get to celebrate it on the 1 year anniversary.
That probably works the best on that too, like with Phenomenal. And I'll get that right actually up here on our shared screen here. There it goes. But what went behind this? I mean, it's quite the story. I have to say, when I was reading the book here, I will have to say I did get kind of teary eyed. I mean, it definitely jumped out at me right away on that, and I was it kind of really threw me. I was like, whoa, that's quite the opening to read that kind of a story, and then where it kind of segued. And I know as the book went on, you went back to your personal tragedy and got more into it, which actually was quite a bit of selling story on it as well. But what went into this before Dave and Tara got a hold of you to write the book, as well as actually sharing, because this is a very personal story that I can officially say as family members who had something very similar to them, not quite what you had to. This is still very hard for them to share, even though it's been about 20-30 years since the situation happened to them. So if you want to talk about that and what that was about.
Yeah, so I have so many things to say about that. First of all, I am so excited that you read it and loved it, because although right in the title it says mom and phenomenal teacher, I do really pride myself and believe that it's a book for everyone. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's for you. So I know that I'm the one being interviewed, but I would love for you to share a little bit more about how it resonated with you as a dad, as a man. But to go back to your question, I am a firm believer that, and not everybody can share as openly and honestly as I do, and I understand that. That's something that I'm comfortable with. But I also believe that it's through being honest and sharing our vulnerable lessons that we can maybe shift things and help people see that they're not alone. And so that was the whole hope. Like you said, in this book, I share a lot of things that I've gone through. Personally, professionally, and hard moments where I've fallen down pretty intensely, but have gotten back up. And so, like I said, that's just important to me because I want people to see that they're not alone and that if I could do it, then they can do it too.
Well, yeah, and like I said, I'm going to share a little bit of mine too, but yeah, I mean, it really was. I mean, it was because I've, people who know me personally and people have known me a long time know I've been through quite a bit. I mean, I've been slowly talking about what's been going on with me for the last, hard to believe it's now been almost 9 months since the news hit me, what led me to where I am right now. And it was quite a bit that, that Sharon, when you were going over that personal story, and it started having me being able to, but also I started seeing the differences of things I went through. I mean, you were talking about the support you had going through your issues too. And like previous district, I had the support like that. I know my principal was always asking me, making sure I was okay. I even had coworkers that were like, are you okay? Because previous district, I had it where I had 2 coworkers. They got up and left. I was all of a sudden in charge of the department, and it was not easy. And I was trying to keep my class and yet find the curriculum and I can't say fix, but actually get through the students that were at that time, as well as trying to also set up things for the rest of the school year, because it was only a couple months in this happened. And it was very difficult. I felt like I was managing versus leading, because I was also the new division leader as a acting member. And it was very hard. And then make things worse on it, I didn't really get to go to the meetings or a couple other things. I had to get through one of our guidances, and it was just like, it was very difficult for me, and that was very hard finding. There were some strategies that I read in your story that actually helped me through those days back at this previous district. But for me, it was a very difficult too, because I didn't have that kind of support when I had to leave my current district. I mean, there was support from coworkers, but administration wise, I can count on 3 fingers exactly what I had that kind of support, which was very devastating. And it was very hard to go through a situation like that led me to leaving the district to where I am now. And it was I have to say, there were some sombering moments in there when I was reading, where I felt like, I complained about how bad things in. I mean, she's been through 3 times as worse as me. And I said, when I have a couple relatives that have been as much as through this too. So me as a dad, it definitely worked me. I mean, with my son, and he has ADHD and sensory issues and other things too, it is difficult at very times. My wife has epilepsy. I mean, some days it's very normal life, and some days, I do have to carry a lot for her for care, and that has affected us. We're married 15 years as the time this recording this Thursday, so we're about to celebrate our wedding anniversary. But it's
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. It's not, it's not been an easy 15 years. I mean, there's been some years where it's been fantastic. I think the last year has definitely been very difficult on all of us for changes and stuff. And we're about to go through some more changes here coming up. I mean, my son's finishing middle school. He's off to high school next year. I mean, my wife's going to be going on almost 9 years in her district. I'm going through a lot of changes of being a middle school teacher when I have not taught middle school in 7 years. Even then I was an enrichment teacher, which was similar to kind of like here, since it's a specialty class, since I teach robotics and technology at Harvard. But it's also getting used to the age range. The curriculum's different, the times are different, and it was really a thing. And like reading yours, like one of your little things when you were talking about you and the family about the popsicle sticks and the things, I actually went and redid my list of things. Like when you're done with stuff, I want you to drag this over on the Google Slides that you've accomplished. I have a lot of ELL students, and it's like, well, am I finished? I'm like, no, you're not finished. Like, you need to look right there. Like, is that finished? He's like, yes. Okay, now drag that over. Like, what do you have left? Oh, I have this, and this. I'm like, and you must keep going and do it until that's done. Like, once this is all on that side, then you're 100% finished. Then hit the turn in button, or at least I can look on there. It's like, yep, you did all 5 steps. He's done. I can go ahead and grade that to see if you didn't have turn in. So, I put some of the practices in almost right away, but I have to say I slept better after I read your book, and I read very fast. I mean, George Corus is always making fun of me. Not reading Dave's books all the times and other people's, but I mean, it really hit me a lot of the points, and it was also interesting learning about that, especially in the hockey areas, your husband and a few other things. But it was a book where I was kind of like, well, I want to read this. It definitely sounds, but at that point, I didn't think it was really that needed. And now it's like, looking back a year, I should have kind of gotten this around the holidays, and I think it would have helped me for what happened to me in January of this year. And I mean, I thought of thank you. It was a very good book. It was a very odd thing, and I've got it hiding around here. I usually have everything placed. I was going to grab it for our interview, and I'm like, where did they put the book? And then my wife's like, oh, it's over here. Like, oh, okay, I'll have to get that later now.
Well, that means the world to me. I love that you have taken one of my ideas from my book and have digitized it to make it relevant for your current circumstance. And so maybe I'll just quickly explain what that strategy was. So I was trying to look at some of my stressors in my life and to see if I could fix some of them, because the thing that drives me the most crazy is how people continue to say self-care, 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 and they just want to encourage us to go do yoga and think that will solve all of our problems, when in fact what we need to do is look at our stressors and see if we can fix them or lessen them to actually help us move forward. We can't continue to put band-aids over our wounds and then because they'll just keep splitting open again. And so I was through my depression, I was looking at specific stressors in my life to see what I could do to help me manage them better. And one of them was trying to get my boys to do chores. And it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of stress, and it was a constant battle and a fight. So there's a picture in my book of what I came up with, which is what you were talking about, was the 2 buckets. And there was a bucket that was called to do, and then there was another bucket that was called done. And I bought popsicle sticks that had 4 different colors. So each of my boys would have a different color of popsicle stick. And I would I wrote or drew for my kids, my twins. They were younger when I implemented this, couldn't quite read well yet. And I would write their chores. And every day we could set up the chore bucket in the morning based on what chores they needed to do that day. And that way, as soon as they came home from school, all they had to do was go straight to the chore bucket, see what they had to do that day, and move them over as they completed the tasks before they got rewarded with their allotted daily screen time limit. So that's what worked for me. I'm glad that you were able to implement it in your classroom, in your Google Classroom, and make things a little bit more concrete and visual for your students in terms of what they needed to do. I also quickly wanted to go back to something that you said about how like somebody had it 3 times as worse as you. And I just want to encourage you, Ryan, to not compare yourself to others, and the listeners too. That's something that I learned myself that was very hard. I kept thinking, like, even when I was going through therapy and I was contemplating a leave because I was depressed, I remember telling my therapist, well, it's not that bad. Like, it's not like I'm suicidal. And I cringed thinking back on that moment because she pushed back so hard. Because how low do you have to be worthy of working on yourself? And your hard, just because you have it hard or harder, doesn't mean that my hard isn't valid. So I just want to remind you and others who are listening that regardless of what other people are going through, yes, perspective is important, but it's also important to realize that your challenges are challenging regardless of what other people are going through as well.
No, and sometimes we do need that. I mean, I think my counselor would probably agree with a lot of what yours agreed with as a too. So, because I mean, I know she hit me with some things too. It's like, no, you got to kind of listen to this, and you've got to kind of look at how this is about it with those problems and it's very true. But yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, and I mean, like I said, a lot of us don't talk. I mean, I've been very open about my own issues with depression, other things I've gone through over the last several years with both my family on the podcast as well as my other things I've done. I've even talked in a couple of my writings I've done. I even had a small brief mention about it in my dissertation once upon a time about saying, days back then I would never think I was self there, and those were some very dark days, but I didn't spell it out. But I think some people kind of went, oh, sounds like he dealt with a lot of depression or possibly a suicidal ideology. I'm like, yeah, that's it. You don't have to say too much. It's in there too. So it's quite, but yeah, like I said, it's a very good book, and people, if you haven't, like, please go check out this book, or, like I said, depending on, where you want to buy it. I mean, right there, like I said, you can find it on Amazon and some other pieces. It's a very good book. I mean, I've definitely got it tabled on stuff. And it's interesting going to your book, because you actually talked a lot about your journal entries here. And I was on that a little bit with the resources that are on your website, because you're a runner. I mean, I don't do it as much as I do. I more exercise some stuff with my dog and do stuff. And I definitely follow a lot of fitness plans from Jen Burtis and so forth. But like for your fitness journal, because you were talking about running the marathon, I'm 46, going to be 47 later this spring. I'm still hoping one of these days to run one of these marathons. I'm hoping to do it before I'm 50. I think it's going to happen. Just not sure how it's going to come about, but but what has gone in for your fitness journals for working that, as well as, like, in your book, you even talked about how you worked yourself up, especially when COVID happened, about getting yourself, because during COVID, we were doing a lot of stuff with some other people, including David Smino, where we were doing we were trying to do the 100-mile marathon, where we tried to get in those 100 miles, at least, how many miles can you run a day, and try to get those 100 miles. So we did something very similar during COVID. But, for yours, how did you get that set up and trained for all that?
Yeah. So what was most important for me was breaking my goals down into very small and manageable steps. So yes, I have run, I don't even know, I've lost count of how many half marathons I've done so far, but I didn't start thinking I would run a half marathon. As a matter of fact, I only started running the year after I opened the school and nearly burnt out. And I was having all of these physical symptoms that nobody could quite explain. And in the end, what it boiled down to was I just was too stressed, and stress was manifesting in bizarre ways in my body. So that's when I decided to take charge, and that I knew that I needed to take care of my health better and my fitness. And that's when I decided to run. And I decided my small goal was going to be to run for 10 minutes and not to miss 2 days in a row. That way I only had to think ahead to tomorrow. Can I run tomorrow? No. Okay, I better run today. And once I got comfortable with it, the pandemic happened, and I was blessed with more time than I've ever had before in my life. And that's when I decided to tackle a 5K and nearly died. But I worked my way up to 7K, where I rolled my ankle in another setback. And then not long after that, I saw that Dave Burgess had run his first 10 kilometers. So I was like, well, if that guy can run 10 kilometers, surely I can. So I worked my way up to 10 kilometers. And once I'd reached 10 kilometers, then I started thinking, well, maybe a half marathon would be in my future. And that's when I started to take it a little bit more seriously and building up to that distance. So it wasn't one day, let's do this half marathon. It was small steps consistently over a long period of time that enabled me to do that. So.
Yeah, and that's really important. I mean, like I said, my wife, like, as I mentioned earlier, with epilepsy, we've done the epilepsy walk usually yearly, which is usually in September. We used to do the one in Monroe in the summer. But yeah, I eventually got to the point, because my brother-in-law used to run, and he was a long time runner, did the Turkey Trot. I still think he does the half Disney, New Year's marathon and everything else. So I started doing it, but I did it slowly. And this was before I even had a dog. And, I did those slowly. I tried to do running, because I have very flat feet. So I had a type of shoe. And yeah, it took me a while to move it up. But I said, if I can run here, this is a mile. So if I can run around this block twice and go home, and I said, that's me running is almost 8-10 minutes. So that's good. And I kept doing that. And then eventually I said, I want to run to the next town, which is 5 miles down this thing. So then I'd run 5 miles. I'm like, that's over going it. So I'm going to 7K. And then I ran on back and everything else. And definitely during COVID, that was a lot where I was having that, where I was doing on some weather. So I had a lot more time. And then finally I did run a full 5K with the dog, and she was a younger dog then too. And we ran like the time in like 22 minutes. And I was like, I just did a 5K in 22 minutes. How is that possible? I was the guy who was losing it at 13 at the mile because he got sick, and then he had to run it in the middle of 35-degree weather one year in middle school. So it was a workout, but I've been able to do it yearly and do the pieces. I'm hoping to get a little farther. I can definitely go 10Ks now, but I'm really trying to move on to that half marathon. But we did try doing a marathon here in town just after COVID. It was, well, not time, but we still had shutdown, but it ran around town. It was the full COVID, and I got about 9 miles, and my leg had a spasm, and then I had to stop, and I was so mad. I had gotten there, and I basically turned around and had to limp home, and then because I missed one of the rides as they were checking people, the runners, for it and everything. They were supposed to do this year, so I said I'll do it next year, and then they never did it again. And I was like,
well, you know what? You can always come and join us, and we'll find a half marathon or a marathon, whatever you want. 10K even. I've traveled for 10Ks. That's fun. Everything is worth it.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a little bit more into that. I've definitely found out colder weather, though, and me are not really best friends. And I ran with Adam Welcome during IdeaCon in Schaumburg, and it was very cold. I actually did very good, and I had a muscle spasm. Sadly, we were not even a half a mile from the hotel coming back, and I was kind of mad. I had to walk there. I was fine a couple hours later, but it's like, man, it just hit me kind of hard, and that was in quite a 10K. So, I mean, Adam's been wondering, you've been trying to do your running. I said, yeah, I have been trying. I mean, I haven't done cold weather because me and cold weather aren't really good. And then I'll have like a bad cough for several days. And it's just
don't come here to run then, Ryan. Don't come to my place.
And now, see, now you're challenging me. I'm going to find a way to come up there, Annick. So
don't come in the dead of winter.
Or, opening new teacher, phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's also good if anybody's looking at the resources. Like I said, it's off Canva. So if you have a Canva account, you can go ahead and do that. I was trying to do that a little earlier, but my computer was like, I think I'll wait before I do that Canva. I was like, okay, but it's still, they're very good journals. And the book also has a couple on that too. And thinking about that and thinking about health and social media, like what are some other things you're thinking of doing here? I mean, hard to believe we're coming to the end of 2024, 2025 is coming up. What are some projects and stuff you've got, getting ready for here, especially because I know the boys are very busy in hockey season right now.
The boys are very busy in hockey, so that keeps me incredibly busy. My latest new passion is through the summer, I just joined a small gym of women who do CrossFit just out of my coach's garage, and that has been really good for me. So I'm taking a little bit of a step back on running, only running on the weekends right now, and doing 3 workouts a week, CrossFit workouts a week, just trying to build up my strength. And that's been super challenging, and a great community of women that have supported me in ways I didn't even know that I needed. So that is what I'm kind of diving into, and I think one of my goals right now is to do a pull-up unassisted. Right now I'm still using the band, and hopefully one day I'll be able to deadlift my husband's weight. Those are my 2 goals right now.
That's a good, I like that. Deadlift my husband's weight. I like that.
Yeah, that's my plan.
My joke is my wife does a lot of boxing. We do a lot of boxing out there. I'm just like, she could take me out, and she's a southpaw. So, get that left hook, boom.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm going to take out my husband who's, 6 inches taller than me. Just boom. And
I support this fully.
She's listening to us outside like, what are they talking about? What am I going to take on? Oh man, that's one. That's great. See, folks, this is what I do. It's just like here, learn life. If there's somebody walking behind Annick's window there, I mean, me and my door likes to open, and my dog likes to come through. But I was like, hey, there's somebody walking behind her.
I'm still at school, so there's probably kids playing at the park and whatnot. So always something.
Yeah, I had to do one time where I just wasn't thinking. I was talking with a person. I was actually in my back office in my old school, and we were interviewing. And all of a sudden, I had somebody come in and drop me off. And he's like, "Oh, who was that?" I was like, "Oh, that was one of my students. He was dropping off his report."
Aww.
Cool. Yeah, but he's like, he saw
Real life.
And I had a little light that said, currently recording. So
yeah.
Oh man, you got to love it. And then sort of thing I see, I was like looking at your desk back. That's you got the Don't Tell the Pigeon. You got that really cool little drawing back there, and
I've got lots of good stuff back here.
I know. Oh yeah, certain pirates there.
Yeah.
You should see my bookshelf right now. It's like everybody sees my bookshelf like, wow, that's a lot of books. Do you need them all? Like, what makes you think I don't? I need books.
You need all the books. My husband says no more books until you read the ones you've got. That's not a rule that I'm going to follow.
Right. Like I said, I took advantage of that meme and everything. Like, what are we? Book readers. What do we want? More books. Where are we? It's like, what do we want? More books. What are we going to put them? We don't know.
Doesn't matter.
And like my current classroom is actually part of a library, so we're always joking. We're just doing our we're doing our bento book report right now for the first thing with the kids. We're going to combine everything we've learned from their websites to QR to Canva to 3D printing and all that and put it together here. And then I'm like, and I told the librarian, and after that they get to have the shoe boxes for the books. She was like, really? I could keep them? I love this idea.
Amazing. That's great. Works for everyone. Win-win.
Exactly. I think this is like a librarian. It's like, I've never had kind of projects like this before. It's like, well, I try to be very involved at all my libraries I have in all my previous schools. So I did. I don't know why I'm not going to finish there. A little shout out to Miss Gallagher out there over there.
Nice.
Put that out there. I don't know if she's listening to me right now. There we go. I haven't done that. That's actually the first one this season. See, Annick, you get to get the first air horn of the season.
Love that. Love it.
Is there anything else you want to share with us here as we're getting ready to wrap up for the episode here?
Oh goodness, so much I could share. Maybe I will share one of the lessons that I'm most passionate about, and that is guilt, because I feel like that is something that many educators and parents struggle with. And so I'll share a little story that helped to remind me that maybe we need to think of guilt in a different way. So like I shared earlier, I've been a runner for a long time and slowly built up to a half marathon. I'm also a full-time mom, and I've got 4 boys. And so when I decided to sign up for my first half marathon, and I was thinking about all the training that would need, I started to feel guilty. I started to wonder, well, I'm already away from my boys all day at school teaching. Am I really going to take more time out of the time that I have at home with them to go train for a half marathon? And I did. I decided to put my guilt away and train. And then this one evening while we were camping as a family, my husband and I were doing the dishes outside, and I could overhear my boys setting up their next game. And they took up a piece of chalk and they drew a line across the road. And they said, it's not about perfection. It's not about speed. It's about stamina. You just have to run across the bay or run around the bay without stopping. And they ran with each other, cheering each other on the whole way while running around the bay. And I thought to myself, this is the most amazing thing I have ever heard, I have ever witnessed, I've ever seen, because here I was so worried about failing them as a mother because I was taking time for myself to train for this half marathon, when in fact I taught them the most beautiful life lesson, which was that they should pursue their dreams, they should take care of their passions, and that that is important. And I've tried to remember this and remind myself of it consistently when I feel that guilt creeping in, because doing things for ourselves is important. And we want to model for others what we hope that they will do for themselves now and when they're older too. When my boys are older, I hope that they pursue their passions and don't just drop everything and do everything for other people. So if you are struggling with guilt right now, I hope that this lesson helps you to try to reframe and look at it in a different perspective and to continue to follow your dreams and passions.
Yeah, that's actually that's mic drop moment right there. And I think that's really good, because I definitely have been just as bad as when it comes to guilt either. So it's definitely something about doing your own passions. I mean, one thing here with the podcast, this has been my passion for a very long time. I've enjoyed it. I mean, it's hard to believe now it's going on 6 years coming this January, and we're, after this, I'm about 16 episodes from 200. It's something that pretty amazed myself. I'm like, what? It's like I'm almost to 200 episodes. Like, really? It's like, how did this happen? So definitely a great thing, as they said, like going for your passions and your loves for that. It definitely is work too. I mean, it's definitely something I've tried to. I mean, definitely, unfortunately, guilt has hit me many times over the years, and it's sadly won many times, but other times, it is going for those passions. So thank you for that.
And kudos for you for continuing on. Like, look at all that you've learned in probably all these years and your almost 200 episodes. That's awesome. Super inspiring, Ryan.
I thank you. And then sure, I will go back to old episodes, including some of my ones I did a couple years ago, which was when I was my previous school. I actually lived right behind it. So I actually walked home, and Friday I did like, instead of like, as I drive to work, it was like, as I walk home, and I would do a nice little reflections. And I have to say, even listening to some of those were really good, especially most recently here, going over some projects and some things. It's not been easy going to a whole different school, whole different district. changing commute again, like a longer commute, up to 38 minutes. But it's been times going back about remembering why I do it and why I still continue to do it. I mean, some people even ask me too. It's like, I was like on Reddit one time and they say, do you still enjoy this job? And I said, yes, I actually do. I mean, there are, and we, sadly we see a lot of teachers get burnt out little things. And I definitely know after everything happened to me, it was kind of feeling like, do I want to keep doing this? It's very difficult. And I kind of made a decision back in March that, I still want to do this. I'm going to try to find a way and see where it leads me. And I'm still doing it, but still, it's not like that question doesn't jump on my head some days. Cause some days, like I said, like today, it was a very hard tech and day. We found by the end of it, I was like, I got through it. I'm good. So I think we'll pull this off in the last 2 weeks before we all change students. And also I had a new student come in today. He's only going to be with me for 3 weeks and he's coming right in the middle of the project. He's a nice guy. I like him. He's an 8th grader, but it's like, wow, talk about boom, you're right back into the whole throw of things. Like I'm going to get him ready. He's got ready. He just, luckily he's coming in a new quarter, but it's like, you're taking a class for me for 3 weeks and then you're done with that. And you're going to probably be with, this teacher over here, but at least you're going to have the full 12 weeks with them. So it's like, hey, I'm going to try to make it memorable. I just said to him and I said, listen, do your best. No one jump on me for questions. It's not going to be perfect every single day. Some days we have to fly by it because it's just the way the day started. And he saw that right away. It's like, wow, things are going wrong. I was like, yep. But he looked at me like, you act like you had like 15 backup plans. Like I try to have 15 backup plans. Because like they said, the students will see right through if they know something's not going wrong versus like, whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. Let me fix. Okay, we're good. Moving on. So.
Well, that's good. Model those mistakes and working through them, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Good for you.
All right. Well, Annick, thank you so much. How can people get a hold of you or check you out? I mean, I talked to you definitely on Instagram quite a bit on everything else too, but how else can the listeners, both audio and visually, get a hold of you or find out some of your phenomenal work?
So I am on X, Twitter, or Instagram at Annick Rauch, ANNICKRAUCH. You got my website there, which is annickrauch.ca. So those are the best places to find me. My hashtag is phenomenal. I know it's a mouthful. You've nailed it every single time, but it's phenomenal, but with an extra M. So for phenomenal. And you can find my book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
All right. Sounds a little great. I think everybody should hopefully be following her, at least doing it here too, especially on the audio case here. All the information will be in the show notes. Those who are having a live feed that'll be available. Also, of course, people who are early on, they will have this episode actually both in its entirety and everything else here on our Patreon page. You'll think about liking and joining our Patreon page if you'd like to for the tiers. Find your level, go from there. We got a whopping 3 people. We're on our way. And everything else. Annick, I want to thank you so much for being on today. And thank you again for, this. I mean, we had some schedule changes, but thank you so much for being on here today.
Thank you so much for Ryan. I'm losing my words. Thank you so much for having me on, Ryan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Same here. And everybody else, we will see you later.